Hi, I'm Garrett with IDC Woodcraft, and I'd like to welcome you to this video. Have you ever come across a project that you wanted to do, and the more you looked at it, the more impossible it seemed? Well, I was doing a one-on-one with a guy named Ted, and he was trying to work through a logo that somebody gave him to make. And the more I looked at it, the harder it looked like it was going to be. And that actually proved to be the case. The more I looked at this, the more I was like, I don't know how to do this. But I stuck at it and finally came up with a way. So what I'm going to do in this video is actually go through this thought process. What I want you to try to grasp here is just the thinking process that somebody goes through as they're creating a project, especially something like this, as you'll see in a minute, that it's got a lot of challenges to it. That's going to take a lot of thinking to work through. So that's what makes this video a bit lengthy. What I want to start doing is whatever I do in design work, I want to put on the router and show you how that works with the router. Should take you all the way through, but in this case, I'm not going to do that. This is not my project, so I have no desire to make it myself. The issue is the design issue. So we're going to dive into Vectric and just start walking through this. And you're going to learn a few tips and tricks along the way of how to resolve issues. This is actually kind of an important video because it really makes you think about how to get through a tough project. The good thing is by the time you're done, you've taken yourself up a notch. So I hope that this video, you'll learn something from it. If you stick around through the whole thing, give me a thumbs up and give me a comment, say, I stuck around, because this was hard. And I think that's about it. Let's just dive into the project. Let's go. Okay, so this is the logo that we're going to be working on and trying to solve. How do we do something like this, where when you're looking at it, the more you look at it, the more impossible it seems. And so we are going to be working through this. The first thing I want to do is show you what Ted wanted to do, and then we're going to talk about why it is not going to work well that way, and how we're going to rethink this. So I modeled it up in the way that he wanted it. So his thought was to take the mousy T's, the big M, and the circle, there we go, and raise them up, and then have the swish down below and a lower level. And so when we look at this, or when I was looking at it with him, it was becoming very clear very quickly that it was not an easy project to do by the way he wanted to do it. In fact, I wasn't even sure how to do it because there's several things going on here that make it a challenge. Number one is this little area right here. You have these black parts of this big circle that we want to retain that character in the circle. And if we raise that circle up, being as thin as it is, this being a 12-inch by 12-inch project, those will break off. In fact, we'll probably have breakage all the way around because the circle will be so thin. So that's the first problem that I saw. The next problem, let's go back here, was all this noise on the swish. Kind of very jagged, going back and forth, and wondering how I was going to actually cut that with a bit. All I saw was having to go to a smaller and smaller and smaller bit, like a 1/64th, in order to get into some of these small areas, and I still won't be able to get into it. And the third one was the circle is kind of the same way. It's a bit jagged, but it is crossing through the swish, which threw up a little bit of a how do I approach this in a practical way. And the fourth one was the M. The swish is going through the M and it's going through the circle here. But there's another issue that I saw when he wanted to do that, is if he's wanting to cut this out so all that's raised, that means that he has to surface everything here around all these elements. And by doing that, it's going to make it very impractical. There's going to be a lot of run time on the machine, and there will be several bit changes. He would use a 1/4 inch to rough it out, and then he'd go down to an 1/8 inch to get down in the areas like in here under the letters, and then he'll have to use a 1/16 inch to get into the corners of it. We are on a small project. It's only 12 inches by 12 inches. And so basically with all that runtime. It's impractical. It would be like probably 3 hours worth of cut time. Something you don't want to do, and you don't need to. So we are going to approach this so differently, very, very differently. We will have an area raised up. We will have the M raised up, but the rest of it will be done differently. Instead of raising up the circle and mousy T's, we are going to V-carve them. And then the swish that runs through everything will have an outline cut, and it'll be painted on the inside. So in order for Ted to be able to do what I have in my mind, he has to paint the whole board white and get it completely finished first, and then put Oramask on it. Now, Oramask is a material that you put on top of a project, and you can cut into it. It'll cut cleanly, and then after you cut the project, you can spray paint your carving area, and it'll protect the areas that have the Oramask on it. Now, Oramask is pretty much made for this kind of stuff. So there are other products out there, but Oramask is the one to use. There is a link down in the description for that, so you can get some if you want to use it. I'm not going to demonstrate Oramask here. This whole video is going to take a little longer than I want it to take anyway. The whole intent of this video is to help you think through complicated projects like this and to give you some guidance as to how to think about it. Okay, so with that being said, I'm just going to reiterate. We are going to carve out the M. We're going to make a pocket for the M, and then we're going to make a separate M, and we're going to insert it into the M that we carved out on. So the M will be raised up. We're going to V-carve mousy T's and the circle, and then the swish is going to be trimmed around. And then we'll peel the Oramask from the swish, and then we'll paint it. Multiple steps in this project with Ted. It's going to be a good learning project for you. Okay, so first of all, the project is 12 inches by 12 inches, and we need to get the image scaled up to that. So we have to select the image. So we have the dotted line going around it. That means it's selected. And we're going to go to the transform objects area, which is right there. And the second icon from the left, when you hover over it, says set selected object size. Pick that button, and what we're going to do is we're going to be changing the size of this project to the size of the size of the logo to the size of the project. Now, looking at the logo, it looks like it's wider than it is taller. So we're going to focus on the width. We want the width to be 12 inches, and we'll just let the height scale with it. And the way we do that is when we're inside the set size, we're going to leave the two radio buttons set as they are. We're going to come down to the anchor, and we want the anchor to be selected in the middle. That means it's going to expand out from the middle as when we scale it. We want the width to be proper width, so we just can change that number to 12 and make sure the XY link is selected, and then click apply. And now we've changed the size of the project to the size of the logo, or vice versa. All right, so while we're looking at this noisy, messy, actually really cool logo, has to be broken down into its constituent components. So what I mean by that are there are 4 components in this logo. There's the big M, there's the swish that goes through it, there's the text mousy T's, and then there's the circle. So what we want to do is create layers for each one so that we can work with each one independently. So when it comes to really challenging projects like this, that you have to really start working with layers to keep your mind straight. If you're not, then you get really confused really quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to start building up the layers now for this. We're going to break it into its 4 constituent components. So let's go, and I'll show you how to set that up. So we have the 4 elements. So what we're going to do is come up to layers, click it. We already have the 2 layers. We have the layer that we came in with, layer 1, and then we have the bitmap layer, which is where the logo is at. We want 3 more layers to get this 4 components. So I'm just going to click add new layer 3 times. And there we go. But I also want a base layer to work off of. So I'm going to create another layer as well. And you'll understand this in a minute. So what I'm going to do is go back to layer 1, click it twice, and I'm going to change that name to base logo. Then we'll go to layer 2, and we're going to change that to big M. Layer 3, we will call this circle. Layer 4, we will call it mousy for the text. And then layer 5 will be the swish. So we'll call it swish. But we want another layer. No, we don't. I already created it. I'm sorry. We probably will want another layer. The way I'm looking at this, we probably do need a second layer. But let's just go forward and we'll see how to use that and if we need to apply it. Okay, so this is where things get a little screwy when we start tracing bitmaps. That's what we're going to be doing next. We're actually going to have to trace the bitmap twice. And you'll understand this as we go along because we got this swish going through the circle and the M and other things. So you really want to pay attention to this section here as to what we're doing. Okay, so we're going to click the big M image so it highlights, and we're going to trace this bitmap. That's the first thing we're going to do. So we're going to come over to create vectors, and under create vectors is where you draw all your lines and letters and everything. We're going to come down to the bottom, the very last one to the left, and it says trace bitmap. Select that, and you might need to make sure that the bitmap is selected, and you know it's selected when you have the purple line around it. All right, so we're going to look at this, and you notice right away that the swish is gone. So we're going to need this swish in here at some point. Do I want to put the swish in or do it? So this is where we run into the problem. When I turn it up and get the swish in there, we lose the circle right there. And we lose the M in mousy, but that won't be an issue. So what I'm going to do is start off with the way I got that is I slid the slider right over here. And I was just adjusting like the density of the picture until everything popped in. And I went too far there, so I'm going to go there. And with that, I'm just going to take everything in. Do I want to work with it like that, or do I want to start off with a circle? So we don't see the circle right now. So I want to work with the circle first. So what we're going to do is we're going to tone that down until the swish is not touching the circle. Okay. So the swish, there's a little bit of the swish there. And the reason I only toned it down to that point, so I can retain as much of the character of the circle as possible. You'll watch if I tone it down more, let's just come up, we start to lose the circle. So I want the circle about as dense as I can get it. So I'm just scrolling back until we get there. Okay, so we're not touching right there at this point. What we're going to do is come down here and we are going to leave our corner fit up at the higher end, about 75%. What that's going to do is smooth, it'll make our nodes, give us less nodes. I'm not sure I want to do that corner fit. I'm going to put it about 50%. It'll be less nodes and it'll be more straight lines. But straight lines can be an issue in something like this. We'll look in a minute. There's so much going on in my head when we're thinking through a project like this. So with that, I'm going to leave the noise filter low. And I'm going to preview. Click the preview button at the bottom and you see now we just created some lines around everything. And I just want to make sure it's not created a connection right there, which it didn't. So I'm good to go. And we're going to click apply and close. So right now we come up to the layers and I just made a mistake. I just put everything on the swish layer and I don't want that. So I didn't switch my layer properly. I'm going to turn off the other layers I'm not even using. I'm going to turn off the bitmap layer. And I want to get all this stuff onto the base layer. So we're going to just select everything, and first is we're going to move it to the proper layer. We're going to get it off the swish layer and get it to the base layer. So now we're going to switch over to base layer by clicking the word, and we're going to turn off the swish by clicking the little light bulb. Okay, now we're going to get rid of the stuff we don't want, like this extra thing right there. We're going to just hover over it and delete it. Same here. Get that noise out there. And we got a little noise right there. We want to get rid of all the swish. I don't want the swish right now. Alright, so that's gone, and we got a little spot right there. It doesn't need to be in there. Okay. And this is to take another gander all the way around. Make sure to insert some tiny stuff in there that I don't want to work with. That's going to cause some alarms. And I don't see it. Okay, so we have our circle. So the first thing we're going to do is just get the circle out of there. We're going to move it to its proper layer. So I'm going to select everything on the circle. I selected that. I'm going to hold the shift down and select everything else that has to do with the circle. We're going to right click, come down to move to layer, and we're going to move that to layer circle. We're going to take the M and we're going to move it to layer. Big M. Okay, then mousy T's. Looks like we got a little blurb right there we don't want. And we'll take mousy T's and we're going to move that to mousy layer. Move. And mousy right there. Okay. So there is something that I need to do that I didn't do. Well, now we have to go back and do this now. Okay, so I'm turning on those three layers, the big M, the circle, and mousy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab them all and I'm going to copy them back to the base layer. So we're going to right click and we're going to come down to copy and we're going to copy it to the base logo. And the reason I did that is because I want to have the foundation I'm working from. And by removing them and I start manipulating them, I may accidentally make a mistake, and I don't want to do that. So now if I turn those layers off, it's still there, and it's on the base logo layer now, which is what I want. Okay, so now we need to get the swish in here. Now that's going to pose a problem because the swish is going to interfere with the circle, and when it creates new vectors, if I go in to turn the bitmap on, here we go. We're just going to turn the bitmap on, and we already have our base logo vectors. And if I try to retrace the bitmap again, it's going to retrace, but it's not going to be exact to what we had before. However, I want the swish in there. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to create another layer called temp. And it's going to be like a project layer where we can import the swish and then work with it with the circle. You'll understand this in a minute. This is a challenging project. Okay, I created a layer temp, and it says temp up here. Now I want to turn off the base logo, so we're going to turn that off. I want it out of the way, and we're going to select the image, and we're going to go back to trace bitmap again. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to what we're going to be doing here. I have to actually trace the bitmap again because we have to get the swish into this thing. But I've got a problem. I can't trace the bitmap over an old trace, so I have to create the new layer and then do that. But watch what I do here. You're going to find this really interesting as to how I managed to create this swish. So it's going to take a little bit of thinking, but you'll get it, and at the end we will have a swish. So check this out. And now I'm going to take that slider and I'm going to bring it up so the whole swish comes in. And that was too far. There we go. And I'm going to run with that. So we're just going to go straight down and we're going to preview, apply, and close. And now I'm going to go in and turn off the bitmap. Make sure that I am on temp layer. And we don't need the mousy in there. We don't need the M in there. The whole point of doing this temporary layer is to get the circle to work right. Here's why I am I don't even know how to word it. If I turn the bitmap layer on and turn the temp off, we got the circle that runs through the swish. So what I have to do is if we're going to cut this swish out, we have to create a stop point for it to cut it out. Well, I just have to create the swish, first of all. So I may not have to create a stop. Yes, I do. Maybe not. I'm not sure yet. I'm still piecing this whole thing together. We're going to turn the temp layer back on. We're going to turn the bitmap off. And I apologize. This is just a hard thinking project. I'm going to delete the M because I don't want to work on that. I'm working with the swish and the circle. And we don't need this either. Now there may be an issue right in here. So I'm just going to delete everything else right there. Delete, delete. Now we have the M in there. And we got all kinds of noise inside this swish. We will take care of it in a little bit. Now you see the big M has outline here, and that's just part of it. But we got little spots there. We don't want that. That's just noise. I want to get everything out of the way that we don't want in the way. So we got a lot of stuff up here too. And one thing, when we turn on this bitmap layer, you see there's all kinds of white spots in there. You can paint those white spots on by hand. We're not gonna fiddle with them. We're gonna eliminate it from here, and we're gonna paint the swish gray. So we're just gonna delete all these little spots, get them all out of the way, because right now they're interfering with what we were going to be doing next. Okay, so I have to keep that little piece right there. So I delete. Oh, I did delete something I didn't want to delete. It was inside the M. I'm gonna have to think about that. We got this little part of the M goes like that, and let me show you on the bitmap. Go like that. So we got this part of the M where the swish goes through. I think we're going to be okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate these two little circles there. And then that. And any other noise that may be in here. There's a couple there. There's one there. And there's a couple up here. And right there. So now here's where my problem starts to come in. So the circle is attached to the swish, and we have to break that attachment. So what I'm going to do is turn the circle layer on for a moment. I want to see how that runs through here, because I'm going to V-carve the circle through here. So I want to not necessarily have the swish as a part of that, or does it matter? Nope. Okay, here's what we're going to do. The swish is all going to be one vector. I'm going to turn this circle back off, and what we're going to do is we're just going to take a line, one line. We can use a swirly line right here, that curved line, and we want to have our snaps turned on right up here. And I'm just going to start on that line, and I'm just going to click a few times until I get over to there and the line touches there. So I'm assuming you understand snaps. If not, you'll have to find some videos that I have. I'll try to put a video down below that talks about snaps. I actually have made a video specifically about snapping, so I'll have to do that. Okay. So I'm going to do it down here too. I'm just going to create the line is going to kind of flow with the swirl or the swish. Then I hit space bar to terminate that. And we're going to do the same thing over here. So it looks like I'm going to turn the bitmap on. So it's looking like the swish kind of, I don't know if it kind of runs that way, but I'm going to treat it as if it is, this is one swish and this is another swish. In fact, we're going to modify it just to keep things separate, because what I'm seeing is, when I picture this in my mind as a carving, it's going to get really close to each other here, so I don't want it so close that I can't work with it. So we're going to do a little bit of altering to the swish. The thing about altering a project is, if the alterations are minor, the person who's getting it isn't really going to see the minor alterations that we're making, as long as the main character is still held in it. So we got another one right here, and click right there. And it looks like I went a little far, so I have to remember that. Vectric has a feature in it where I can back up one click, and I don't remember what that is. I know Mike Mazelic did a video on some of those features, so I'll have to watch that video again. So I'm going to click this one, and we're just going to do the same thing here. This version 11 has a lot of new features to it. And we'll do the same thing over here. Okay, so now we got that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to use the scissors. First of all, we're going to, we'll just use the scissors. We'll use the cut command, the little scissors, and we'll cut in away from the circles. There, there. And then I have that little spot where I crossed over, so I'm just going to cut it right there. And I don't need the circle there. And we don't need the circle over here. And we don't need the circle on the other side. This is all for the swish. Alright, so I think we're in good shape, and that means now we can get rid of all the other noise. Let's turn temp off. Everything here is now swish. We just want the swish, so we're getting rid of anything that's non-swish. Circle, okay, we got one little area there that I didn't close up, so I'm going to grab the curve, draw curve, and I'm just going to come in and finish that out, just like that. And then we're going to cut the circle there. And now we have our swish. And that is going to be, hit the escape button to get out of that. And now I'm going to grab that swish, everything, and I'm going to move it to layer swish. So I hope you got that, the way we created that swish. We had to manipulate things and just create some stuff and adjust some things to make it work. So we got a lot of work ahead of us because we still got a lot of refinement to do, but I hope that you understand now why we had to create a swish the second time and how we worked through that problem of creating a swish that's going through other elements. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so what I want to do is show you what we've now created. We're going to go to swish, turn it on, mousey on, circle on, big M on. So we have now created the base logo. We still have the mousey. That's an issue. The mousey is so we still have an issue going on here. We're going to have, what we want to do is, I'm going to fix more of the swish. What I want is the swish to just drive right through. And you'll understand this later on. So it's going to come right through the M. It's going to come right through over here and right through over here. So we're going to now go back to the swish, the temp layer. No, we're on the circle layer now. So we have to turn that on. I'm sorry, the swish layer. And we are going to change us to the swish layer. So I'm going to click swish, and it says swish up here. I'm going to turn the bitmap back on just so I can get an eyeball what we're doing. So we're going to draw a line just across here and get rid of this part of the M. So I'm going to get the draw curve, and we're going to go back in here, snap to that, just come in like that, and right there. And we've got it there. We did a little crossover again, so I definitely have to go find that little thing, that little feature. So I'm going to do the same with the swish over here. We're just going to come across and go to there. Space, and then over here we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to start it up at the top, and we're going to come in, over, and then touch the line there. Escape, and now I'm going to cut in between, everything in between. That, and then we're also going to fix that little crossover there, trim that, and I'm going to delete this little feature right there. We don't need that. There. Delete that. Okay, now it looks like our swish is complete, but we're going to clean it up just a little bit. Make sure that some of our noise is out of there. it might create some issues. I'm just looking at all the sharp areas in there. We'll just kind of stay with it. This might be an issue here. What I'm going to do, because we're going to kind of just cut a line around here, a drag knife would be good. We're going to select that, and I'm going to hit N for node, and then I'm just going to delete a couple of nodes. I'm going to delete these 4 nodes. So what it did is I created a window around them. Okay, you can see I accidentally created a window around this flag right there. I didn't want to do that. So we're going to just click back on, and make sure I don't grab that flag, and hit delete, and Control Z. I grabbed, you want to hit D, not delete. That's what I just did. So D, and got rid of that. And then I'm going to hover over that one and hit D again, and now we're set up. So now our swish is taken care of. Now we've got some corners on the swish. That's not going to matter. All right, so I hit escape to get out of node mode. We've got another little bumpy thing right there. I want to delete some of that. So I'm going to go back into node, and we're just going to hover over that one, hit D. I'm going to hover over that one, hit D, and hover over. We'll just drag that one down, and we're going to grab the little flag and flip it around. Just like that. Okay. This is going to be not so good either. So we're going to do that one too. We're going to just grab a whole bunch of them and hit D. And let's see, I'm going to hit D on that one. And if you're still hanging around, put down in the comments I'm still hanging around, because I got to hand it to you. Well, you've been around for a little while, and now you get the gist of why this is so difficult, and you probably have had to have a couple cups of coffee to keep you awake during this. But I hope that you're learning something. If you are, give me a thumbs up and a comment, some suggestions how you might handle this project. Let's keep going. What we're doing is a difficult project. And I know that I'm going fast on this, and I hate to have to go fast on it, but I can tell you I've practiced at this quite a few times. Quite a few times, and I still didn't quite get it right. Okay, so now we're done. Let's look at everything again. And we've got all that built up. Now the circle runs through there. That's good. Okay, so what I don't like is the swish is so close to the end of that V-carve. The circle is a V-carve, so all these little weird lines here are going to be V-carved. I want that swish to be inside of it a little bit. So I'm going to select the swish. I'm going to press N, and I'm going to just drag the nodes in a little bit. I don't want them over there. So close to it. And we're going to fix that one. Just dragging the flags around. And so that's moved away a bit. I'm going to delete that one, hit D, and that's gone. Okay, so we're looking good there. And the only other thing we have to do is fix Mousy. So this is an issue. So Mousy, if you look at it closely, we still have a lot of work to do. We have to fix this M too. The M is not in good shape. So let's work on the M first, and then we'll fix Mousy. And I'll show you why M is not in good shape. If you zoom in, you can see it's bumpy. If we're going to carve out an M, we want to carve out a nice clean M. But we've got bumps in there, so we got to fix that. So what we're going to do is switch to the big M layer. And then we're going to turn all the other layers off. And now all we're doing is looking at the big M. I'm going to select the big M and hit N for node, and now you see why it's all bumpy. There's just too much stuff in there. What I want is a straight line right up here. And I want to see if that turns into a corner. That's not a corner node right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this node right here up to there. I'm just going to raise it up just a little bit. We're altering the M. Then we're going to drag the other two nodes over, just like that. Then I'm going to hover over them and hit D and D. And now we have another little issue. So we're going to hover over that node and hit D, and you can see there's another issue going on right here. Just going to grab that flag and just pull it in line for right now. Okay, so now we want straight lines. So I am going to simply go from one black node. I've got a black node right there, and that's a transition node. There's a black node right there. So we're going to say our curve starts right here. What we're going to do is select everything, all our nodes, and we're going to go use this button right here under Edit Objects, Curve to Fit. And that's going to clean things up. I wish I had shown you this earlier, but it's a great little feature. You select that, and you notice that it's showing all those nodes. And when I hit preview, watch what happens with all these nodes. I hit preview, and all of a sudden a lot of our nodes loosen up. But I'm going to change our tolerance to 0.005, and I think that's too much. Yep, I want to change it to 0.02 and preview. All right, so now it's starting to clean things up quite a bit. We're going to say OK, and then I'm going to go back to node again. Well, I want to look at the M. So we still have some screwy areas, but take a look at the nodes now. I'm going to hit N, and you see we've eliminated so many nodes, it's not funny. So I am going to, which node do I want to keep? This all works. It's just working through it. I'm moving that up a little bit. I'm going to smooth this node right here. Let's see what happens. So I hover over the node and hit S. And is it going to allow me to smooth it? No, it won't, because that's an arc. It's created, everything's an arc now. So we're just going to start deleting. D. How do I know it's an arc? Between two black nodes is a little, like, oops, little green dot. That tells me it's an arc. So here's how we can fix it. It's very easy to get a straight line. We can get rid of some of those arcs. First, I'm just going to get rid of nodes. I'm just selecting nodes and deleting. And now you see there's an arc right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over that arc right at the middle, and I'm going to hit D, and it eliminated that line. And I'm going to go in to draw a line, and I'm just going to, this is a straight line, I'll go on the end there, and I'm going to just go right there. And now we have created a straight line. So I'm going to doctor this up by doing what I just showed you. And you see, by the way, that now we have an open vector. I'm just going to hit Shift and select that one. And then I'm going to come over to this button, Join with a Line, and I'm going to hit it twice. And now that line is now part of the M. And we're going to fix all the rest of this stuff up. So I'm going to fix this up. I'm going to pause the recording until I get that one fixed, and we'll get to the next. Okay, now I have fixed the M, and I'll show it to you. I've cleaned up the majority of the nodes. Hit the wrong button. Node, there's still a couple that probably need some work, but I'm going to leave it as it is. It's got a little curve down here. There's a node right there. I don't really need that node right there, so I'm going to delete that one. And we have a straight line there. So I'll delete one more, D, and a couple more, like right up here. We don't want that little arc right there, and I don't need that little arc right in there. So we're at a corner right there. I'm just going to drag this one down just a little bit to smooth that out. And for the most part, this is what we're going to fly with. So the M is now done. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to let that go. We'll take this one out. Delete. And drag that little bead down a little bit so we still have that flow. Then we got a couple more right in here, which we'll delete there. Oh, we don't want to delete that one. I'm going to Control Z. I'm going to delete that one. And we're going to leave it like that. Okay, so the M is done. Everything else is going to stay. Okay, so we're done with the M, and we are going to leave it there. Now we have to work on the mousy text. All right, we've got the M done. Now we get to work on that mousy text. We have to actually redraw the text with text, and we're going to put it on a curve. So we have to do a little bit of work with the text there as well. So you're going to learn something new here. Again, So I just switched over to Mousy layer and I'm activating it and turned off the big M, and so now we have Mousy T's. And we pretty much have the same problem here. This text just doesn't look good. You see it's kind of screwed up here. It doesn't it's not even all the way around. It just didn't do a clean cut. So I had to ask somebody for some guidance on this because there were some issues. But the guidance that he gave me was really, really good. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to type in text. And I'm thinking that this is Times New Roman. So we're just going to start the text feature. And we'll just start it right up there. It'll come down a little bit more. And I'm going to type in Mousy T's. M-A-U-Z-I-E-T-E-E-S. And it's obviously too big. So we're going to bring that down. How big should we make this? I'm going to close that. And I'm going to get the measuring tape right here. I have to switch my glasses for a minute. Okay, so the measuring tape right there. And click it. And we're just going to measure the height of this M. And so I clicked the bottom and I clicked the top. And so that is 0.877 inches tall. So we're going to close the measure and we're going to select Mousy and we're going to select the text and it's going to highlight Mousy and I'm going to overwrite the text height right here to 0.877. And I'm going to close this. And then I'm going to move it over. So I'm just going to use the cursor keys to move it over a bit. Now I'm thinking that this is still not looking so good. We'll see in a minute. What we're going to do is draw an arc right under Mousy T's. I'm going to grab the arc command and click it. And then I'm going to come over to this part of Mousy. And I'm going to click right there. We're not quite at the end of the M, but that's okay. We're pretty close. As far over to the S that I can, where that line would hit and where the curve would come up to the end, where that would intersect would be about right there. And then we're going to come over and draw the arc underneath right there. And then we'll close that. So now I'm going to select Mousy and then I'm going to select the arc. So I'm going to hold Shift and select the arc. And we're going to go into text on a curve. Select that and it's going to give me a little warning. It says the text is too long to fit. So let's see what happens. I'm going to click OK. And it pushed the text in there. So the text is just a little longer. You can see that it's not so bad there. I think it looks okay. It can be a little taller, a little thinner, but I'm going to work with this for right now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to click off, and then I'm going to get rid of the old text. So I'm just going to grab a few items and just come across and delete. There we go. So we have Mousy T's. We're going to turn the bitmap on. Well, first we got to get out of this feature over here, close that, and then I'm going to turn on the bitmap and see how that text overwrites. And it's not so bad. We can move it over a little bit. We can select it. I think we can move it over. Yeah, no, we're okay. We're just going to leave it the way it is. They are not going to quite notice, but what I am going to do is separate some letters. Like the I is very close to the Z. So we're going to come over to this feature here. We're under Create Vectors. It's got this little, next to the two T's, is one that says Edit Text Spacing. Select that. And then we're going to come in between, and we're going to hold down the Shift button. We're going to come in between the Z and the I, and we're going to click a couple times to separate that. Now I'm going to see if there's anything else that's too close. There's the E can be a little close. So I'm going to separate that. I'm going to separate the S a little bit. And then I can bring this together here. So now I'm going to let go of the Shift button and click in there just to bring the Mousy T's a little closer together. So we're just doing a little doctoring up. It's a little bit out of scale, but I'm going to let this roll with this. So now I'm going to delete that curve, and now we have mousy T's. If I get rid of the bitmap, we got mousy T's. All right, I think we're done. A lot of work to put this thing together, and a lot of thought ahead of time to actually make this work to this point. It's time to run toolpaths. So, you got to watch this to see how I actually do all this kind of stuff, because it's a little bit of a challenge as well. But let's take a look at what we've got so far. Okay, so now if we go to Big M, Circle, we have mousy T's taken care of, and we go to Swish. There is our whole project. Now you notice that the Swish is crossing right over the circle line. I'm not going to worry about that. And you'll understand in just a minute why it's not an issue. So we're going to go into our toolpaths now. We are set up and ready to go. I just want to take a look at this real quick. We are going to bring this out a little bit. I'm going to hit node, and I'm going to drag this down, make it a little bit bigger, and I'm going to drag this one over. I'm going to grab that and twist it around and bring it out. Drag that down. I just want it to be a little bit bigger when it's coming out. And I'm going to leave the other two. Now this one's a little small. It may not even show up in our project because it's so shallow. So we'll give it a little bit more size by moving that node. And we'll go ahead and leave that alone. Okay, so now what I want to do, you see there are black nodes in here. I don't want black nodes. So while it's highlighted, I'm going to come over and curve to fit. So let's get this into the window. We're going to curve to fit that. So we're going to use that little feature right here under Edit Objects. Select it, and I am going to simply preview it and then say OK and take a look at it. So what will happen is this will cut much cleaner now. It's lost a lot of its jaggedness. So I'm going to Control Z and see if we want to keep that jaggedness. It's just going to cut weird. You know what? It's such a funny shape, and it's got some character to it, so we're going to leave it as it is. I'm not going to actually do that curve thing. So we'll leave it like that. Okay, we're ready to generate some tool paths. So we're going to come over, select this blue button, hit that, and the first tool path is the big M. We are going to cut that pocket out so that we can make another M and insert it into it. So the first thing we're going to do is select the pocket command, and I'm going to do this with, we're going to go a 1/4 inch deep, 0.25, right there, the depth of cut. And then the bits, I'm not sure. I think we'll do this with a 1/4 inch. We'll just do it with an 1/8 inch. I'm going to select the 1/4 inch and I'm going to remove it. It's going to increase the machining time, but it's going to make life a little bit simpler. And then we're going to go with the raster cut. It doesn't really matter. We can use the offset. Offset will probably be a little more efficient. And then we're just going to go with that. And I am going to, I don't know how many passes. It's going to take 2 passes. So it's going to be 2 passes to cut out that M to 1/4 inch. We're going to come down and we're going to name that big M. And we're going to say 1/8 EM. And calculate. And no vector selected. I have to select the big M, calculate. And there it is. So it's going to take a little bit. Let's see how long it'll take. Close that and look at the clock. And that'll take about 19 minutes to cut that out. So close that. And I'm using an 1/8 inch end mill at a 40% step over. We go into the toolpath and run it. And there's our big M. There's our pocket. We are done with the M. Now we're going to go split our screen. And we're going to now do some V carving. So we don't need the big M anymore. I'm going to click off here because I don't want the M selected. And we're going to go up to layers right here. And we are going to turn big M off. And we're going to turn the Swish off. We only want mousy and circle because we're going to V-carve both of these. So now we go to the V-carve. And we will V-carve these with a 60-degree V-bit. And the reason I'm going to use a 60 is because I want to make sure we dig into these holes a little bit. It may be a little deep in a couple spots, but I think we're going to be okay. So make sure the flat bottom depth is not checked. Our start depth is at 0. We select our bit, and that bit is going to be a 60-degree V-bit, 1/4 inch diameter, the same one that is sold on the IDC Woodcraft store. And I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to say, we're going to name it. We're going to call it Mauzie, M-A-U-Z-I-E, circle. And then we're going to type in at the end 60V. And then we're going to calculate it. And again, like I always do, I didn't select the vectors, so we're going to select everything and calculate. And now I'm going to give it the color black because that's the color of it in the project. So you have to select the radio button tool color and black, and now we're going to run that tool path, and now we have Mauzie T's, and we have got our little black spots right there. Okay, now we're going to turn off the layers Mauzie T, or Mauzie and Swish, and we are going to turn on layer Swish. Everything else is going to be turned off. There we go. And Swish is the only one that needs to be turned on. And we're going to click over in the gray area right here just to deselect anything. And now I'm going to select everything here. And we are going to do a profile cut. We're simply going to cut along the line. Now remember, we have put we've put Oramask over the top of this. Okay, so I forgot to tell you what Oramask was. So Oramask is this material right here. And it says Oramask on the back of it. And Oramask is this plastic sticker sheeting. And it's actually pretty stiff. You can cut it really well. So you put it over your project piece like this. And then you start to cut into the project piece. And then you spray paint that cut. And then you peel the Oramask away, and then you get something like this little thing I did on engineering flooring. So I had carved out Gratitude, I had the Oramask on it, then I carved out Gratitude, then I spray painted it and let it dry, and then I peeled off the Oramask and got this very cool Gratitude, which seems to be everybody's favorite. So that's what Oramask is, and if you want some of this stuff, it's very cool. There's a link down below where you can get this stuff. All right, let's keep on going. And before we move on, we need to put a second layer of Oramask over everything, because we're going to spray paint gray inside of here. So you can have multiple layers of Oramask on top of each other and it'll still work. But we want to protect everything else. So what we're going to do is, before you do this, you put your second layer of Oramask on. Okay, so this is where you got to keep our head straight. First thing we have to do is spray paint Mauzie T's with our first layer of Oramask and let it dry. So you can do that right on the machine. And but you need to protect the M. In fact, we should probably cut the Mauzie T's in the circle first to spray paint it, and then come back and cut the M. So basically, I drew it like this. We're just going to have Mauzie circle highlighted, and we're going to come over and select that little arrow right there and move it up. So it is the first cut now. And the M will be cut second. I hope that makes sense to you. If I go back and reset the toolpaths, and I run the first toolpath, it's going to be a 60-degree V-bit with Mauzie T, and I run that toolpath, now we have that. So now we spray paint all that. Let it dry. You have Oramask over everything. And then you change your bit to the 1/8 bit and run that after it's dry, and now you have that. And now you put your Oramask over all this stuff that you've just cut. So you have 2 layers of Oramask. And now we're going to do a profile right there. And we're going to take a third bit, and we are just going to profile a line. We're just going to take the 30-degree V-bit or a 20-degree V-bit, and we are simply going to cut like the edge of this material all the way around. So our depth of cut is going to be very shallow. We'll make it a 0.1, 0.01, maybe 0.015. So that fine bit will just cut just into the wood, just enough to cut the Oramask. And we're going to use the 30-degree V-bit, also available on the IDC Woodcraft store. And we want to make sure that we are on the line, and then we're going to select everything and come over, give it a name, and we're going to call this Swish 30V and calculate. And then we're going to run it. Okay, so I see a little bit of a problem. We're going to run the toolpath. So I'm going to make that toolpath a little bit deeper because it didn't show up very well here. So we're just going to cut it deeper so we can see it. But you only want it to be like a 0.1, 0.015. So we'll make it at a 0.3 and rerun it. But I do see a little bit of a problem here that, oops, I didn't put in a 0. We're going to put a 0.03, 0.03, and rerun that. And then I have to recalculate everything, reset and rerun. We're going to run all the toolpaths. Okay, so now we've made a cut in the Oramask. The problem is we cut across the M there, and when you peel away the Oramask, it's going to peel off the M in this area right there and right there, and what you'll have to do is come back in and re-protect that area. Same with the V right in here and right up here. Wherever the swish is crossing, you're going to have to re-protect that a bit and then run it. And you'll have to do the same thing up here. So you'll maybe just stick some Oramask in there or something. Whew, tricky, tricky project. But that is the project there, and that's what is going to end up looking like. So to tell you exactly what we ended up doing is we separated all the components so we could work with each one of them. And then I'm going to stop for a second and just give you an alternative as to the way you can do this so you don't have to go in and re-protect the Oramask stuff. Is we're going to close that. We're going to switch back to drawing for a moment, 2D, and then I'm going to leave the swish turned on. I'm just going to click off of it, and then we'll just take the circle, and I'm going to just make them active. We can take, I want the swish active. So what we can do is take this part of the circle right there, and we can control, how can I do this? We can take another line. Let's do it like this. We're going to take this. We're going to click it twice. I'm going to hold the shift button down, control and shift, and over this little button right here, I'm going to grab it and move it over to here. In fact, Control Z, I'm going to take the swish and do it with that too. So we're going to do that. Now I'm going to click it. Now I'm going to hold the Control and Shift button down. That will enable me to copy it and move it, just like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this up a little bit so you'll see, you'll get this in just a second. I'm going to take these scissors and I'm going to, not the scissors, I want a line. I'm going to put a line right through here, just right here. Now I'm going to space, so I can restart the line. I'm going to do the same thing right there. Now space. Now I'm going to close that, take the scissors, I'm going to cut that little end there, and I'm going to cut this little end right here, and then we can delete the lines. Now I'm going to explain to you exactly what I'm doing here in just a minute, and well, I'm going to explain it to you right now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that line and I'm going to move it over a little bit. I'm going to take that line and move it over the other way a little bit. And then I'm going to come in with the scissors and I'm going to cut, 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 cut. Okay. And we're just going to take this part of the swish and we're going to put it on a new layer, just temporarily. I'm going to copy to a, now I'm going to move it to a new layer. We're going to call this temp 2. Temp 2. All right, and we're going to change the color of it. So I'm going to go to temp 2. I'm going to go up in the layers. I'm going to go hover over this little black box, click the black box, and change it to red. There we go. So now that one's red. And now I can go to the, we got a little corner. We're going to select this. And I'm going to come over to the move under transform objects, the first icon. And I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to just click right about there. And I'm going to bring it down into this area right here. And we'll bring it right about there. So now it's overlapped. And now the swish is a closed vector. I can actually cut along the Oramask right there, and that Oramask will stay connected to the, it'll still protect the groove that's there. I hope that made sense. I'm not going to take this any further. This is a really long video, and it's a very tedious project. So if you did this all the way around, then what this will save you from is having to reprotect this part of the groove when you peel the Oramask away to spray paint it. You'll have a strip of Oramask along there, and it may leave a little bit of the wood exposed, and you can just take a little paintbrush and just doctor it up right up to the edge. So, and then you'll take the M, and the M, and let's just go ahead and cut the M. So you need a separate M that's going to insert into it. So what we're going to do is we are going to switch back over, and we're going to split our screens, and we're going to reset everything, and I'm going to turn all the layers off except for the M. So the big M, I'm going to select it, and the other layers get turned off, so I can't see anything else. Swish needs to be off. Here we are, and now we're going to cut the M out. So that's going to be a separate toolpath, and what you have to make sure of is you actually create your G code separately for this. So what we're going to do is now we are going to do a profile cut. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to select the M, and this time the profile has to be on the outside. Now I got to check something real quick. We're going to, before I do this, I'm going to go back to this big M here. I want to make sure, okay, I'm good. I just want to make sure that I didn't do it in a profile mode. Okay, so we got the profile, the M is selected, we're going to select profile, and we're going to go on the inside right there. We're going to select the middle radio button. We're going to use a 1/8 V-bit. So what I would suggest is a compression bit for this. One of the good ones that's out there is Cody's Cadence CNC compression bit, and use that. But we're just going to go with a 1/8 end mill for right now. I'm going to select that, and the cut depth is going to be Z equals, which is the depth of the material. And that's going to be on the outside. I apologize. We will be on the outside of the M. And because we're going to cut out the outside profile of the M. And then we're going to come down and we're going to name this Big M cutout. And we're going to call this 1/8 comp compression bit. Calculate it, run it, and there is the M, and that M will be inserted into the pocket that we created on the sign. If you got something out of this, give me a thumbs up, and if you did get something out of it, maybe you can help support me. Buy me a cup of coffee, literally. Down below is a link where you can buy me a cup of coffee. You know, help support what I do and helping you. I would certainly appreciate it because it helps me. I hope you learned a lot in this video, and if you did, whatever you did, if you got a good takeaway from it, put it down in the comments. I'd love to know what you're getting from the videos that I create for you. So I'm looking forward to reading those comments. And Ted, I hope that this gave you some guidance as to how to do this mousy T sign. There's a lot of time put in on this thing, so brother, I think you owe me a cup of coffee. Anyway, that's about it. I hope you have a great day, better tomorrow, and I hope your CNC journey is getting better and better every day. I'm Garrett with IDC Woodcraft, and I will talk to you next time.